Good evening and welcome to the September 22nd, 2025 board meeting of creating Augusta Utility District. We'll start out tonight with an introduction of some board members. And we'll start on my left with Paul.
Bob Torrey, Augusta trustee.
Cat Harity, Augusta trustee.
Tim Nana.
Augusta trustee.
Keith Taylor, Hollowell trustees.
Cecil Munson, Augusta trustee. Pete Luke, I am a non-voting trustee. Brad Sawyer, Augusta trustee.
Kara Walker, non-voting trustee for Home.
And I'm Ken Knight, I'm a voting member from Augusta. Now we'll start with employees.
Mike Payne, finance director.
Andy Began, assistant general manager.
I'm Brian Tarbuck, general manager.
And consultants tonight.
Alan Burton, human resource consultant.
Meredith Zeta.
Meredith Greg
Yes.
Burgess, PR.
And I think tonight we have a guest with Bob. Whoever's going to be with us, and he's going to talk to the board about something. So we'll have him on. Brian said there's a couple of agenda additions tonight that's not on here. We're going to have a call. Is it a Zoom call with
Jamie's on the line now. Yep.
Jamie, with the lawyer. Last time we talked about some potential litigation and we asked him for input. So if that's Jamie, then we'll be putting Bob up next and we'll get to it. So go ahead.
So Andy's going to navigate to slide 19. Hey, Jamie, can you hear us right now? It appears to be muted. I don't know. Are we muting Jamie or?
No, he's muting himself, I believe.
He's trying to call in remotely. Or he is called in remotely. It just for whatever reason can't seem to mic up. Sorry, Jamie, still can't hear you. If that doesn't work, give me a call on my phone and I'll put you on speaker.
I don't hear.
I don't either. I'll bring you up to speed. So Jamie works for a law firm in.
Oh, there it is.
It looks like you're right there.
And oh, there you are.
Yeah.
You got us? All right.
Yes. Can I tell Paul Napoli from New York, because the link's not working, to call your cell? And if you pick it up, all right.
I'll pick it up.
Okay.
We're using all the technology. Jamie's
Yeah.
trying to watch a soccer game from his car by the looks of things.
Yeah, I apologize. I have 4
That's all
children,
right.
so it's kind of
And then
par for the course.
He's calling Brian.
he's calling me, so stand by a minute. Hopefully my phone rings. Sometimes it doesn't ring.
You probably don't want to get off that.
The long and the short of this is I wait for this call to come in. We talked about this slide, same slide as meeting last month. We talked about whether or not we want to participate in a lawsuit regarding PFAS contamination that's in the river that got into the wells. Not a class action lawsuit, to be specifically named. We're not suing the local mom and pops and so on and so forth. So, Jamie, do you want to take the floor and explain that a little bit better? And I'll wait on this call from Paul.
Yeah, but I'm forwarding the link, but I will talk. Here it is. I'm doing this now to Paul.
Yeah, and Jim Simpson's trying to get on too. Not the Jim Simpson that we know, different.
The other Jim Simpson?
Is Jay on?
Yeah.
Jay, it's Jamie. So Brian, I don't want to take a lot of the time. Let me do this quickly. I've worked with Brian on I think it was an easement case several years ago. I've known Mike Hodgins. I've been practicing law for 30 years in Maine. I joined up with the Napoli Skolnick firm about 10 years ago when you heard about the mass tort litigation for opiates and the opiate pandemic and the try to recover money for all the municipalities, counties, cities that have had to take the lion's share of the burden of dealing with the opiate epidemic and pandemic and so forth. And I've done that with them, and I've known the firm since. It's the same firm that pursued a claim on your behalf on the DuPont 3M settlements, and they have investigated possible sources to the PFAS contamination, which involves mills. A couple of things I would say. They're sensitive to employers in the state of Maine. There's no charge for their time. They do these on contingent fee basis. They're simply trying to address the causes of PFAS and to assist water utility districts like yourself in recovering money. Because as you know, you've had to put a pump. Brian's the engineer, you know better than me. And there's going to be operating costs going forward. And this might be an opportunity for you to recover for your operating costs that no one really knows about going forward. And then lastly, I'd say in terms of, putting these mills out of business, and I think Jay or Paul would be in a better position, but my understanding is these fall under the Superfund claims and that there's some federal funding associated with that. But that's it in a nutshell. I think Brian and I have talked a lot, and I really wanted to put a face with a name. If you decide to do this, I'm local counsel. I'm the one that you would answer to, but the expertise comes from Jay and Paul at their firm. And so I'll answer questions. Jay, if you heard me, you could probably fill in any additional information.
Sure. Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Simpson. Thank you, Jamie. I'm an environmental lawyer, practicing environmental law for over 25 years. At government, I did a lot of enforcement at EPA in both New York State. We've been doing these cases across the country for the Napoli law firm. As Jamie said, we've done a lot of investigation into where we think the PFAS pollution originated from, the contaminated the water supply here. And it's our intent to use the federal Superfund law, which is called CERCLA, to file a lawsuit against those entities. And primarily it's 5 paper mills. Importantly, 3 of them are no longer in business. 3 are already closed. However, the corporations that operated those mills are still a going concern. They're still viable defendants. One is in Augusta, the former Augusta mill. One is the former Madison paper mill. And another one is the Kimberly Clark mill that was in Winslow, Maine. The other two mills, one is the Somerset mill in Skowhegan, which is operated by SAPI. SAPI is a South African corporation. They're a classic global corporation. The revenue last year was $5.8 billion. And the 5th mill is in Watermill, Maine, operated by Huhtamaki. They are a Finnish corporation based in Finland. Last year, their revenue was $4.1 billion. So just to stress, as Brian said, our intent here is not to put anyone out of business, is not to close down a mill, we have no intention whatsoever to go after these local mom and pops, but really the more culpable parties, those we think are most responsible and frankly probably have insurance to cover this sort of contingency.
If I could just add, last summer, this is Paul Napoli from Napoli Skolnick. Hello, everybody. Sorry I was a couple of minutes late. I was technologically challenged finding the Google Meet, but I found it. So the U.S. government last summer created, added to CERCLA, the Superfund Act, these 2 hazardous substances. And they did it for a reason. They want municipalities to pursue these type of claims. They want these areas to be cleaned up. They want the drinking water to be cleaned up. Just recently in the last week, the new administration confirmed, people thought they were going to deregulate and remove these from the hazardous substance list, but they kept them on because they want municipalities to recover these monies. This was always the plan. It's the second act, and we did this when we pursued opioids as well. And I believe we represented the county in opioids in Maine. We represented most counties in opioids in Maine. 3M and DuPont and Tyco were the first tier. They were the manufacturers. And we got as much money out of them as we could without bankrupting them. Now that second tier is the users of the product, big companies that contaminated the river, contaminated the land, and left. They're gone. They made their profits and they left, and they're continuing to make profit. So you're not the first municipality we've pursued this with. We did some test cases earlier last year, and one such case was Hicksville, and it's smaller than Augusta. They recovered about 20 million. They had more drinking water wells. They recovered about 20 million from the manufacturers, but we pursued a circular claim on their behalf against big companies like this, probably a half a dozen as well. And we recovered another 32 million for them that they put in their reserve fund to deal with O&M in the future and to improve their systems. Just today, we got a judge in that same case after one other defendant, $1 billion company, to give a judgment of 37 million. So all told, we've gotten about 100 million for the community to help remediate the drinking water and to have it for O&M in the future. So there's no question in my mind that this is the right course to pursue, because the polluter should pay. I mean, that's the motto, the polluter should pay. Cost recovery should be the polluter's responsibility, should not be the constituent's responsibility. And you're going to see over time, especially with the volumes that come through your drinking water plant, that as you're replacing GAC, as you're doing operation and maintenance, costs are just going to go up every year. And there's a statute of limitations that's associated with these type of claims. You bring them or you lose them. And so, I believe, like I said, that this is something you should do now to pursue, at the very least, these legacy corporations. I would say the other two as well. There's what's called joint and several liability. So we could actually sue one and get all the money from one, and that company has to pay it all, in for a dollar, in for a pound. But we like to pursue as many as we can because it makes it easier to resolve. So if we were able to pursue 5 or 6, that's usually the better course. But I'm happy to answer questions.
Answer questions. I have a question.
Sure.
Some of these people we're talking about that may be culpable for this, were they at the time doing this? Was this a legal thing to do at the time through the federal government to be able to do this at the time, or this was completely illegal and this is why we're doing this? I'd like to know that.
So a lot of the contamination that we see in drinking water supplies and see in the country, at the time there were no regulations. So the Circular Superfunds law does not require whether or not it's legal or legal at the time. It talks about who the operator was that generated the waste whenever it was in the past. So they would be responsible now under the law. So it would be illegal now, or who the owner of the property was at the time. So you can pursue either, and it's a lower standard. They talk about in a negligence case, it's a preponderance of the evidence, and in a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, the standard. In a circular case, it's even lower than a negligence case, because the main purpose of the Superfund law is to clean up the contamination. The federal government and local governments don't want to leave a legacy of contamination or costs for their constituents. They want them to be cleaned up by the people who did the original pollution. So as of now, it's illegal, the fact that they generated it even years ago.
Got it. Thank you. Good one.
Several questions. The statute of limitation ends when?
We believe it ends in June of next year for anything that you've already expended. And then it gets a little trickier, and it comes under the First Circuit and what work you do and how much you spend. So we think it's May of next year, but so it's the sooner to file these, the better.
Okay. Also you mentioned one, there was 5 being in Augusta. Is that American Tissue?
Yes. It was American Tissue Corporation.
And there's nothing there to go after, right?
Well, they're still in existence, so we would go after as much as we can.
But again, the land was taken up by the city of Augusta, right?
There's no reason to believe there's anything.
Right.
They've got both the state and the city have claims in that we don't expect to realize anything from American issue. I mean, if and that the founder, the last principal was in jail until recently. So that's going to be a tough, if somehow, some way, money were to appear, they were to appear as, I don't even know what you would say, momentarily viable LLC, the line to get in, to get access to whatever that money might be would be a very long line.
And
So,
If I can jump in,
so Paul, one thing, Brian, I think you were saying, so the Augusta mill is not operating in Maine. So if you brought the claim because they're still legal existence, like Jay said, it wouldn't impact employees in the state of Maine. But if they're, the question is, they're viable nationally, is what I hear Jay saying. And by filing the claim, you're trying to trigger insurance coverage at the time they may have been operating. So you may not recover a money judgment against that entity because they're defunct, there's a long line, but we're trying to trigger both the circular fund and any insurance coverage they had at the time the contamination occurred.
so we do a deep dive investigation with them as defendants into their insurance. And before 1988, a lot of these insurance coverage for environmental liability are uncapped. And because these type of cases, the releases happen over periods of years, multiple insurance carriers coverages get triggered. And so we deal with those issues. If they are, I've recovered when companies were in bankruptcy 20 years ago and they're still a trustee. And we've recovered, we found a company in another case where we thought it was bankrupt and non-existent, and it turned out it got bought by another company in Germany that not only had billions, it had tens of billions of dollars, and they really had no defense because there's very little defenses to CERCLA. They're only they bought the assets and liabilities, so they were forced to pay essentially 12 million to get out of the case, because they could have been responsible for 100 million under joint and several liability. And then stacking settlements like that on top of each other means real money. Not that 10 million or 12 million isn't real money, is real money for the town. And you put it in a reserve fund and you use it for a rainy day. You use it for operations. You use it to improve, your drinking water standard. We'll work with Jamie. Like I said, we've represented almost every except 1 or 2 counties in Maine for opioids. So, we're ready to go. We're not like a small town shop. We know what we're doing. You heard Jay, he was at the EPA and the DEP and the both at New York State level and New York City level. We're in this to get as big as recovery as we can for Augusta and make the polluter pay. I was the one who negotiated the $15 billion in settlements with DuPont and 3M. And I think you're going to be very happy with the job we do for you. And if you
the state of Maine, are you going to go after the state of Maine? They gave the approval of many farmers and many different entities to go ahead and put the sludge and everything into the ground and stuff.
No, I represent farmers around the country who've had issues. I don't sue farmers. And I'm not going to sue the state of Maine. I work with the AG. I've worked with the AG in Maine, the current one and the past one, who's now governor, in opioids litigation. There's the case is the easy case. The one that the U.S. government set us up for is to pursue the users of the PFAS products that are in your community. We don't sue mom and pops. We don't sue anybody you don't want to. It's joint and several. You got some really great defendants. I mean, they use PFAS in all those paper mills. No doubt about it. You're going to be dealing with these issues for 100 years, and you don't want your constituents to be dealing with it or paying for it for 100 years. And we'll get,
Not gonna go after people like, really Augusta and utility district who actually put stuff out there or sent stuff to the dumps and stuff.
no, I represent utility districts. I represent landfills. Those are innocent. They're innocent. They weren't operators under CERCLA, so they're not going to be responsible under CERCLA. They're not generators, so to speak, in the definition of CERCLA. So we're not pursuing them. I'm endorsed by the National Rural Water Association, multiple municipal associations. So I mean, I'm a municipal lawyer. I represent municipal entities on contingency cases, on big cases, and in Maine, I exclusively work with Jamie.
So, and just to be clear, the opiate litigation's ongoing. It's been a year and they've recovered money. So the state of Maine collaborates directly with Paul and his firm to work out allocations for the settlement. What Paul did in the opiate litigation and what didn't happen in the tobacco litigation is because the state promised some of the tobacco litigation money to filter down to the boots on the ground towns, cities, and it didn't happen. He represents Augusta. I represent Augusta, the city of Augusta. I represent Lewiston, Auburn, Waterville, Androscoggin County, Kennebec County. So we're not looking to sue any municipalities or any of their quasi-municipal agencies like Greater Augusta Utility District, which is what you are. We're not looking to do that. They're looking and they've targeted, like he said, who produced it, which he's already negotiated, and who caused the pollution and what he called the users, whatever he said. But we're also ethically prohibited from suing Augusta or any quasi-municipal entity because we actively represent them, and that's important to know. But also, he's just represented you. He doesn't do that. He represents farmers and some of these other type of entities that have had to deal with the sludge and get rid of it.
Yeah, I think I represent about 15,000 farmers. One of the most famous ones that's dealing with PFAS is a guy, Art Shop, out of New Mexico. He was right next to Cannon Air Force Base, and I'm sure you read about him. He had to euthanize about 5,600 head of cattle because his milking license was taken away. That contaminated his cows and the milk. And it was he's a third generation farmer, and you know, it's terrible what's going on with these farmers and dairy farmers and you know, they're going to see more and more. I mean, Maine is one of the first to really have the farmers test. I mean, it's sort of terrible what they're going through. And I'm suing on behalf of farmers, 3M and DuPont. Those cases just have not come up yet, but they're going to require what they did in Maine everywhere around the country eventually.
You got a question?
I do. Is there going to be any level of effort required from the utility itself, either from your requests of records or if there's discovery on part of the defendant?
So we're going to need some basics from you, some of it which we already have from representing you with 3M. You know, your water flows, your PFAS scores and levels on an ongoing basis. I would work with you a little bit on what treatment facilities you're putting together. I mean, we're talking hours, not days. I'm sensitive to the fact that you don't want to be embroiled in a legal case and spending all the time. Your supervisor would have to do a deposition. There might be 1 or 2 depositions, but you would be prepared for that. Most of the work is going to be on their side. To the extent we have to get any emails or stuff, we have a full IT team of 20 people who can, work remotely and download any discovery that we might need of emails and things like that quite painlessly. I mean, Jamie will tell you in representing the counties and the cities, and we had some bellwethers, they barely felt it.
Anybody else have any questions? Brian, is there any other utilities that are following along?
Well, yeah, that was gonna be my question, Ken. I was just curious if, let's say, I can't speak for the board, I don't have a vote, but if the board didn't opt to pursue this, are you folks gonna pursue this lawsuit anyway? Because it seems like it would make, potentially make you some money, or else you wouldn't be with us on a Monday night. And secondly, if that's the case, do you have other folks downstream here that might also be participants?
So we're not going to sue on your behalf if you don't give us the go ahead. You know, we think you have one of the best cases in Maine. We're pursuing these cases all over the country, literally from Alaska, Hawaii to Puerto Rico. I mean, and they're in every state. You would not be the first one we filed, but we think you would be one of the biggest ones we filed, that you would get one of the biggest recoveries of almost any city, just because you got all these viable defendants. You're going to have a big spend, not only initially, but then over the years. You know, you're going to be dealing with this problem it's forever chemical, 30, 40, 50 years. And so we have been talking to others in Maine, but you've been our primary focus. We've worked up your case. We have a complaint like almost ready to file. I mean, Jay's probably spent with our team the last 8 months looking at your file, working with experts, developing the defendants, looking at Dun and Bradstreet, looking at all the EPA and state data to put that case together. We don't file anything unless it's all buttoned up and we're confident about it, because we're going to be expending, you know, tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars in prosecuting the case, and it's got to be worth it, and we got to be sure of it, and we are.
And I'll just say this, I've made some inquiries and phone calls with some other utility districts like Greater Augusta Utility District. I would guess it wouldn't be upriver, it'd be downriver. And you have a strong case because of your well. But if you bring one, usually a lot of people start talking in your industry, and then others want to join. But I have made some phone calls, and Brian can share that with you, but I didn't want to share it now.
Anybody else have any questions?
You wouldn't be the first in the country. This is growing. This is a growing phenomenon, you know, that all municipalities are doing it. And I understand your reluctance. I mean, I've represented water providers literally for 30 years, and that first okay is the hardest. But once you do it and realize, you know, those that are polluting should pay, you know, you're going to come back to me in 5 years and say, you know, I got lithium in my wells now, or plastics, you know, who can we go after? And that's how I got involved in PFAS. I had a client, a small facility on Long Island, Hampton Bays, at the end of the island, and I represented them in MTBE in 2003. And I got them a big recovery. They came back and said, Mr. Napoli, we don't know what to do with this money. And I said, put it in a reserve fund. We never had a reserve fund. We're always budget to budget. So put it in a reserve fund. They talked to their corporate lawyer, their in-house lawyer. They put together a fund. He called me when I had cancer from 9/11 in 2016. And he said, Mr. Napoli, you remember me? He was the supervisor. I said, of course I remember you. He says, that money, we put it in a bank account, it grew. And we get a call from the EPA that we had 2 wells that we have to take offline. They're over 70 parts per trillion. They have PFAS in them. I never heard of PFAS at the time. And so it was the first case I filed. So I've been doing this now from 2016. But the example is, you're going to get money. You'll have it for emergencies. You'll have it for redundancies. You know, that's important, you know, to have that.
Yeah.
So
Let me just add, you know, just briefly, we've talked about this somewhat. I went to law school in Vermont. Sorry, it wasn't Maine, but it was at Vermont Law School. And driven into me there was the polluter must pay. The constituents, local communities should not bear the economic burden of pollution. And today's EPA says the exact same thing. You know, putting politics aside, that's what EPA's press releases are this year. The polluter must pay. You know, that's sort of what drives me and what drives Paul's firm. And I think that's really one of our themes of this case.
Bob, you got a question?
Yes, is, Great Augusta the first utility district in Maine to go on this?
We would.
Jamie,
We were the first district in Maine to go on this, correct?
I think well, I can't speak. I think Kennebunk or Sanford might be involved. They made a claim, I've heard, not through Napoli, on the 3M settlement. I've had conversations with a couple of other districts that I plan on following up with. So I can say that for Napoli and me, this would be the first, but we're in the process of exploring others, and I've spoken to others. I do think Brian might know that Kennebunk, I think Kennebunk tied up with a South Carolina law firm, but I could be wrong on that, and I don't know what they're doing.
So Brian, what's the time frame here? We need to, obviously we need to talk about it as a board and get back. What's the timeline that we have to do?
That's a question for these guys. If Ken, as the chair of our board, is asking, when do you need a go, no go from this board?
Like I said, the statute is up in May. We certainly wouldn't want to wait that long. We're ready to pull the trigger. We have, like I said, a complaint almost drafted. We've gone through and spent time and money with the experts. So the sooner the better. We think, you can make an impact by filing sooner than later.
Anybody else have anything? I think if this is the information we needed, we'll talk about it as a board. So thank you.
And remember, and it says it here, we're a contingency fee and we pay the costs. If we don't win, you pay nothing. And I don't take these cases not to win. Like I said, I have a high confidence level in this case. Very high.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate all you guys said. Good questions answered, and thanks a lot.
Thank you. And whenever you need
Hi,
us,
Greg.
we're happy to get on again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Another agenda item for next month or about later on.
Sure, yeah, yep.
We want to talk about.
I'll follow, I know Jamie will follow up with me, tomorrow just to see what, if anything, happened after everybody left. So I'll say, think about it for another month and talk about it in October. That's the planning meeting. And then you have November. So there's only a couple, 3 meetings left, but it didn't sound to me like there's any particular urgency, but.
Seems to me a little bit like the time they came to us and talked about we should be doing something when it was the CMP versus the state and I don't think this is quite the same because it doesn't seem political here at all, but I'm going like, so I just, that's my feeling about when the first way they get us is they'll grab a lot more. So and I don't blame them for doing that. Don't get me wrong. I was in the same thing, but I don't know. I want, we could discuss it some tonight or at another time, or whatever you guys want to do. It's going to be what the board wants to do, not what Ken wants.
Maybe next month, they think right about the time for this meeting.
Yep, that's fine. We'll put it on the agenda for next month and we'll consider it again and I'll see if yeah, so that'll be at the Civic Center and we're going to be.
We have 2 meetings next month?
No, we've consolidated into one.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe the November meeting. Let's see how October.
We decided to do just the one.
Correct, yeah. I mean, you can meet whenever you want, so once we have about a week's notice and have a special meeting. Well, the reason I say that now is just in case, we have mediation, I just found out about this and jumping the gun a little bit, but we have mediation with the union on Thursday. So if we can reach some sort of agreement, it may make sense to have a meeting sooner than later.
I hold it in place for that because a couple of years ago we had to do that. So we kind of put it.
So I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, everybody. Move on now. We have Gentleman Bob Weber here that wants to come talk to the board tonight. I'm going to ask Bob to slide his chair right up here to the table and Brian, maybe if you and Andy can kind of set this up for the board a little bit about what's.
Yeah, I think I can.
You sent me notes that he might tell you tonight.
Do you want to? I can, yeah, go ahead. I'll let Andy summarize this because it had to do with the river crossing project. We set a meeting with funding partners about that project today as it happens. They're really pleased with how that project went. And it was a good meeting.
And I take it as a cat that we know we have a operating procedure of how we operate as a district, and we treat everybody fairly. Just operating that we do it right. And this may, I'm thinking that this may kind of fall outside of that somehow, because maybe it's another entity that should be doing it, but we're the only guys kind of standing there with green trucks or something like that. What you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Andy can explain. It's fairly straightforward.
So the blue line is the water main that we installed. And that was our build out from crossing the river. This is Kelton Road right here. This is our 170 Hospital Street garage, and this is Hospital Street. So the concern is the buffer or the loss of buffer. It's the visual appeal from Bob, right? This gentleman's yard. And my understanding is that we came through, we have an easement, we cleared some trees to make room for construction access and pipe installation. There's nothing requiring us to put trees back. There's no city ordinance. There's nothing that requires the vegetation to be established like it was. So there are, a few mature trees that came down. The other issue that came up was the fence. There's a fence line along the Riverview Psychiatric Hospital. We had to remove part of it because it was falling down with our construction. I think a year or so later, the hospital took more of the fence down. And so fast forward to Bob's concern, I think we're talking about a fence also that the hospital had taken down. So now you have a clear view right to the hospital parking lot.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, considering all the vegetation was removed originally from. I mean, I have pictures of before and after, which.
I have a question. We don't normally plant trees on top of pipes when we do stuff typically.
No, we can't. We've got to dig them back up. And
Yeah, generally, I mean, and that's the thing, like we talked at the board level a lot about just right of way maintenance and clearing trees. And some of you may recall from years ago, maybe you do, Ken, when we don't do a great job of keeping our right of way maintained. You think of like CMP as the best example, right? They have these massive poles and you have to keep all the trees cut down around them. We have off-road rights of way all over the place. And if we don't maintain that very well, I think to Bob's point that trees start to grow up, they get big, people get used to them. And then we come in and say, well, we got to clean it out the right away because we haven't done it in a while. And now we've sniped some mature trees that people have come to appreciate, even though we're well within our rights to do that. And it's something we should do more often. So in this case, there was a construction easement that we used to install this pipe. And of course, doing that, trees were removed and then, now Bob has a nice view of the hospital he didn't have before. So I think the short version is Bob's looking for somebody to try to help put some kind of visual buffer back. And from where I sit and from where we sit in a project only perspective, not a political or any other perspective, we're not required to do that. We don't really have money to do that. So we're not planning to do that. But that doesn't mean that he's happy about it. And that's why I said, well, the best thing you can do is come here and have a conversation and see where that goes.
Okay. So Bob, I think we've got it set up. So let's pass the pictures. This is the before.
Right.
That's the after. So we're gonna send around a before and after picture.
And then this is what my neighbor.
Helton Road.
Yeah, because
Which
she
one's
was
this guy?
involved.
yeah, I think he's this one.
This is a neighbor now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about Bob. So
Which trees are the ones that?
Yeah. But she's got a big hole.
These got put back. It was used as construction access here. So those got
Trying
replaced.
to.
And which
see what
ones
we could do
came
to
out
get
then?
them straightened out because there's another
Maybe something in here. I don't know. These are still there. All of the or the
Parking lot.
That was the
state
city
could
that
have.
did that?
No, sorry,
Okay, so the only ones we did where the white line is?
block off the road.
Was Sergeant working for us or working for the city, Brian?
I don't know if they.
I'm sorry?
Was Sergeant working for the city or working for us? That road, there's another road here, making a road, was that?
It's the sergeant installed the water main for us.
Well, Leslie, I contacted the city of Augusta, and like Leslie said today to me, she says, we're not your district entity, which everybody got there, or at least I thought you were on campus, and you're not. So understand that's why, but she's been trying to help me out because, you know, in some places, I don't know, all of Augusta, if you're a commercial to a residential neighborhood, there's usually a buffer there to separate, to keep things, you know, a little bit private. And as you can see, now I'm looking at, the vehicles, the dumpsters, the cars, the shed. I'm looking at people, they go outside to do they let them out to play in the fence area. And they're looking at me.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's the side of my house that my driveway's on, I enter from, even if it was my backyard, it would be more pleasant. So, you know, AMI took down a fence that really didn't close much off. So I'd like to see if I could have maybe something put back there, even a fence on the upper end would make more sense than put a fence on our upper end.
It's the big chunk.
But I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, you get used to the woods, but that's why I bought the house.
Okay, on right of way easements or when the projects are commercial and residential, everything else, there's landowners that they have to stand up for. That's where city, where what they're working with you on, what's required to do that code enforcement officer would need to come out, look at it and make his comments about that also.
We've already done that.
So they've done that already.
So just, go ahead, please.
My understanding is they've done that and they've reviewed the Riverview development, the permitting process for Riverview, and that fence was not a condition of approval. So there's not they can't use that as a cudgel against the city. It was not a required fence. So that was not the resolute.
Let's see.
You're talking about a fence, but those are like trees. That's a fence, or some physical fence established and built.
Well, AMI had a fence down on their lower.
Something they built.
If that was there.
Was that a visual barrier?
Not from my
Okay,
end.
all right, so the trees are the physical barrier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, from the upper end,
We
correct.
kept talking about fence, I want to make sure I understand what
Yeah.
the fence is, what are the trees.
Maybe I jumped too far. yeah.
It's the canopy in here.
I just want people to ask questions so they understand.
So it's
Yeah.
not,
I mean,
we didn't have to
obviously, I
touch
know
this row.
You don't look at
And I
trees
think
through,
some of that was taken down by the hospital.
Your fence, it was on your property.
I had,
You had no, it was just a tree.
it was a tree.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So-
Right away goes through,
So-
easement goes through whose properties, his and the state's.
State of Maine. Can you click on that to show who owns that property? So we have an easement from the state of Maine. Zoom out a little bit so folks can see.
Yeah, it's giant. Sorry, guys. Don't mean to get you dizzy.
So that Cyan?
Yeah,
Anybody know
it's a big, large parcel.
So
It's
we
the
have an
entire-
easement to put the pipe in, and that's it. We don't have an easement from the state to plant trees wherever. I don't think we have a tree planting easement. So the state of Maine would control what happens on that property after construction, not us. So we can't dictate to the state to plant anything there on our behalf because it's not a project related piece.
So I understand that. too.
Yeah.
It's like,
I just. Was it easement, was it taken from your land? The easement already is taken from your land.
Well, they have it, yeah, they have an easement on my
On
property.
your property.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do, and that easement.
That was what I was told.
How wide is the easement?
It's possible, but it wouldn't be.
And the other part of the easement is on the neighbors.
Well, I know, how wide is that?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit because
Yeah.
we acquired
Uh,
state and
Andy,
over by Kelton. Yes, sir.
how wide is that easement?
It's about 30 or 40 feet wide. Yeah, I'd have to look up the records, but it's 30 or 40 feet. It's
So-
because there's a water and the sewer line in that easement.
Oh, okay, so.
We had it to like the part that was closest to his property, if you're doing, is that where you're headed with that?
I'm kind of headed that direction, see whether there's a for vegetation, but there's.
Yeah.
I mean, you got roots with pipes.
Right. Well, what I had suggested to somebody was, state obviously isn't gonna do anything they don't have to, but is up on top of the hill closer to the road is just put a fence there. And that way,
You mean a physical fence?
a physical fence, I care less if it was a abutment or, a wooden fence, anything like that, just to obscure that whole view. Or their view of me, granted. Only, yeah. If it was your house and you're sitting there and you're looking, you know how it is, that's, yeah. But I know I understand progress too, because I'm a contractor and I do stuff, but try to please everybody if you can, but that sometimes it's impossible, that's understandable.
They were trying to bring up some pictures here.
Is that what we're looking at now?
This is abutting our property right now, Cecil. This is, I'll see if I can.
So this is Kelton Road. Bob lives down there on the left, is that correct?
Yeah, down on the left.
Okay. And on the right is the property that.
Actually, yeah, this is our property.
That's
All
our
this.
shrubs, right?
Yeah.
Very
That's
lovely.
170 Hospital Street, right?
Yes. Yes.
How do I get out of street view?
Yeah, most of the imagery is pretty old.
Yeah, so what you were just looking at was this big strip of trees right here. And this is you, correct, Bob?
Oh,
Correct.
And
So any action have to go to the capital planning commission?
I don't know who's the,
Well,
I would think it would be Jan's shop, right? Jan LaRue and
well, I'm looking at who would he go to as part of the capital planning district, so. Wants to do something, we have to go before them.
I don't
I don't
know who has
Well, I'm
jurisdiction.
thinking, I'm on the capital planning commission, and I'm thinking that that's probably where the code is getting released.
State property.
State property.
It would be.
It's part of the capital planning
would be the
commission,
state capital planning.
district. And there is a district, oh, it's capital planning district. That's where you probably have to go in order to have any impact if it's on state land.
Okay, but up next to the road there, that would be the easement plus the neighbor's property, correct?
No, I'm not sure about that.
You know what I mean?
I'm not following.
We have a district easement on his land.
I believe there's a piece of it, yes, that goes onto his land because of the width of the easement. So I apologize. I did not prepare for,
Well,
The-
last minute,
yeah.
Are there survey stakes up there? Do you have pins? Do you know where those property lines are?
Yeah, my line is, well, like that pole that you can see on the corner, that's where my line starts. And just to the left of that is the neighbor's line.
Well, you can visualize that line.
Yeah, I'm
All
looking
right,
right.
so you know where that line is.
Yeah,
Is it surveyed? Do you have a flat map survey?
I've got my deed or whatever, I
All
haven't,
right.
yeah, no, I haven't.
We do have a 30 or 40-foot wide easement. What my confusion is how much of it is actually on Ed's land, Bob's land, versus the state's land. So I think there's a little bit of co-ownership of Kelton Road between the state and the residents that live there.
Was a shared easement between the state and, right?
I think so. No, we have a utility easement only. That's what I'm speaking to.
With the state and,
Yes.
Good, right.
So, as you've been able to see so far, sometimes our group think for creative solutions takes a while. Is there a specific ask that we can consider and give you an up or down on at a future date? So we're not trying to come up with 9 solutions that.
Yeah,
Just some level of visual buffer.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that would be appreciated.
I think that's the question we have to answer.
And is it that hole right there that we're looking at?
The one to the left of the telephone pole on the corner.
There is now a hole that doesn't exist.
I know.
Right through here is where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just couldn't visualize.
That was that picture that I showed you about the cars and stuff, that's that clear. The other clearing is where they made the road to, when they were doing the construction, and
Right here.
they did replant items there to put a buffer back.
I thought somebody put more shrubs or something down right here?
Yeah, Sergeant came in and
Okay.
did put shrubs, taller shrubs than the original forming.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna take a few years to grow, but there's something there that is buffering.
Yeah.
Could you zoom out so we get a better view of the campus?
Yeah.
Where all of this is.
You need more out?
Yeah, please just temporarily, just, okay, although.
So the plant's right across the road, the river here. And this is the whole east
The ask
DP,
is-
East Campus.
Bob, this board, maybe we can help.
That's
with
where
it.
the,
I don't think we have the answer to this.
No,
But I think we can talk about it. And
Yeah.
I think we also pointed you in the direction of the capital planning, but I'm not so sure that. Bob, do you think that this?
Yeah. Starting with Brad, I brought Brad a thing, what we need to see is if you asking us to do something, what's that landscaping plan going to be? Does it meet the requirements of the city to say, everybody else on that side? Certain trees that can only be planted at certain places, bushes, lowly placed trees and stuff. I guess we're asking, what do you want, what kind of bushes, what do you want to see in that space? And then everything.
Don't care.
some visual.
Fence?
You just want something to block.
I just want that.
Yeah.
Could it be a 100-story tree or is it?
I think that is a treaty.
But we'll do that. So I think, Bob, what we're gonna do is we'll have to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
What we want to do.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming.
I don't want anything, I'm not looking for something super expensive, I'm just looking for a buffer there. I mean, you put a tanker truck there, I'd be happy to see that.
We'll get some old truck.
I just-
We got an
I just
old
don't
jet
wanna
truck.
look at it. I love it.
Generator and a jet
Thank you for
truck.
coming in.
Yeah, well, thank you for listening to. I appreciate it.
Okay. We'll talk about Brian, the agenda item for next time. We'll always have some discussion about in the meantime.
thank you for coming.
Have a good evening.
Yep, we'll put that on there as well.
Okay, so we're back in old business, so now let's go with the approval of meeting minutes.
Well, I'd like to take credit for staying 10 minutes later than the meeting ended last month. Those numbers are just reversed. I left at 1903, not 1930, but with that, I move.
Wanna make it-
Approve the amended minutes.
Second.
Any discussion on the amended minutes, hearing none, all of it, all of it. Good. Okay, is there a rate committee update?
Yes, People and I and, Brian and Mike met, last week and went over different discussions again. Please go to the link one is put up, the minutes. That meeting, Brian, there's something very quickly soon.
Yeah, I thought it was already up, so it's on. I don't know why I thought it was up, and they're clearly not.
Basically, also what we're doing this evening is, and you know, again, a lot of work been looking forward if it continues. I would like to see, not before the meeting, that Friday, but a week or 2 weeks, ahead of schedule, the cash flows, the revenue, and the charts we have, and the other cash flow is very good, and the debt schedule, the whole package to this board if they can, like 2 weeks before that meeting, so they can get a chance to review it, so they don't go to that meeting stone cold, nothing, on that thing. So there's a lot of work's gone in it. The CIP list is there. It's got many deals. They're trying to decide which project's going to take priority of which ones. How they're going to continue through. They got the list. Now they're trying to negotiate it in the fall and how those numbers then tie into the charts and things you're going to see come through. And the charts will be showing a 0% increase and a 32%, 3.2 increase. Won't be like we did last year. Then in the last month of December, we then made the decision, okay, we're going to go with the 3 because that's pretty much where the index went to the index. So again, a lot of stuff is still out there. A lot of work is being done on those types of things. Brian and Andy and Mike have the work still cut out to get this up through. Or I just like to have as much as we can to the people 2 weeks before the October meeting, so they can have a chance to do it. That's what we're in.
Okay, any questions for Bob? Seeing none, do we have a quick project update tonight? I hope.
Hey, exciting news. We're moving forward with we have a contract with Consolidated Communications to lease our fiber conduit. So that work will be starting soon. GoNet Speed has the same contract and they're interested in pursuing. Front Street, everything's online. The only thing left is paving down on Front Street. To keep Matt Pouliot happy, we did extend our paving limits a little bit to kind of dress things up in front of the building. I know he's been putting a lot of work into that there, and he's been a good neighbor to us. So we're conscious of that, and we're doing a little extra paving. Our PFAS project out at Riverside Drive, we received equipment bids. Our low bid in gray there on the screen is $755,000 for 6 pressure vessels, 4-foot diameter, 8 feet tall, with media. I think it was 360 yards of material that's going in, and that's what it costs just to get those vessels, the face piping, the valving, the things delivered on a skid to us. So, yes.
What do we know about ACT2?
They're a Portland company. Well, they have a shop in Portland. They've been doing a lot of installs in Maine. Freiburg Water Company has used them. They've been working a little bit with other folks, piloting firms that are testing facilities.
They're up in Madison Sanitary, I think.
Yep, doing foam fractionation. They're heavy into remediation work. They do this on hundreds of millions of gallons a day facilities, and we're like really small potatoes. But they target us very hard. They want our work. They're trying to get their name in Maine spread a little. So we've been testing. Medias, they have a different media with their filtration system, but we're not selecting it. We're selecting the one we piloted because we know the results. So we'll be able to test others when we get
They have a performance warranty. Will that work?
Yep.
Performance warranty that you do something different than what they
Yep.
recommend?
Yep. So Nuterra, the low bidder at $456,000, they were disqualified because they didn't have a performance warranty, and they didn't. They qualified their bid. There were other things that were missing. Clear Creek Systems was the high bid, and they didn't have a performance warranty. We designed around Evoqua So I was surprised actually to see ECT2 so competitive. But you know, their vessels, they are to spec and they are doing what we need them to do. I visited the shop in Portland. I'm impressed with their work as a company. So I think they'll do a very good job for us. Yep. The building modifications, that is bidding right now, due October 8th. So we can fit this equipment in there. So things are moving on that front. But be patient. We're like 25 weeks out for equipment delivery. So it'll be March, April timeframe. Takes a while to build these things. The other part of our PFAS mitigation is our North Augusta well exploration. So actually Wednesday, these red dots, we're going to start poking holes in the ground at those locations. And then we're going to move over to the blue dot, which is our replacement well. And that's ongoing maintenance work. So we finally got through DEP, and the city of Augusta has been great to work with to help us with this problem. So we've got a lot of neighbors and landowners working with us. So it's good and moving. Brooks and St. Catherine, no real update. We're still expecting that to start before October. Trunk line 2 and 4, we've advanced some of our preliminary work starting to talk to landowners about acquiring easements, going through our alternatives analysis for our environmentally sensitive areas, trying to get the environmental review document tightened up and put out. So we have some engineering time on this, and we're starting to move on that more. Davenport is 100% in design. Design's complete. Sorry, we're probably bid it this week. So that is a 1,000-foot segment of drain and water main. Coney Road is done, so it's all paved back in and done. You'll see C.H. Stevenson remobilize in a week or two, I think. They're working with the city of Augusta to do a sidewalk job. So that'll be on the west side of the road. So if you hear anything going on, it's not us, but just letting you know that there's other work happening there. Amherst Street, this one, we kind of slowed our roll on this as we're approaching budget season to make sure we're prioritizing the right things. We've got it all designed. We're about bid ready, but we've got an opportunity to either put it out or hold on it. So we're trying to organize our priorities for next year and keeping that into consideration. We have VIN numbers for 2 trucks. Hopefully they show up sometime. So that's the only update I have there for the fleet. And that's all I have.
I'm asking a question I'm not expecting an answer within a month or something like that. On that one of the Amherst Street, I highlighted purpose. The water main is over 100 years old. We talked about that time to time. Is there, when you have time to do it right now, everything, but I'd like to get a list of some of the things that you have uncovered, the district has uncovered in the last, I've been here 9 years now, and I'm telling you, people don't understand that when there's a water main break, I've said, we work underground, so they don't see the stuff like you're paving on the avenue, you're paving this here and that there. But that's what we're faced with infrastructure that's over 100 years old, 120 years old. And people should be aware of that when they close down the road and they get the trucks out there for 24 hours at a time and crews are working, they're trying to restore water or the soil line, all that stuff there. It might be helpful as just as a sort of like an information sheet when you have a chance. It's not, you don't have to have it for October, it could be Christmas time or something, but it might be helpful to us.
PR information.
Yeah. When I tell the stories about that, when Brian puts it in his a monthly report and stuff like that, or sends us an email, and I'll talk to people, I'll see them, I have this, I take it out and I said, do you realize this stuff on Bangor Street was 1884 or something? And they go, what? Yeah, it's old. They don't make that kind of stuff anymore, They go, we never thought of that. I said, we're sitting on some very old infrastructure that we're trying to replace a little bit every year. Something happens, but you got to, it's just like saying, the old city hall is still being used. It's yeah, right. So thank you.
Any other questions, Randy? Hearing none, let's move on to the general manager report with Brian.
Unfortunately, I only have 45 minutes prepared remarks today, so we'll get after it. And I don't have that much to say. I would like to lead off, as always, with our employees who've been here for a long time. Rebecca Hughes in our office, one of the friendly voices you'll hear if you need to get your water meter replaced or hopefully not your water shut off. But she may call you if you need that too. She's been working in our front office for 23 years now. Came over from the sanitary district side, and still going strong. Johnny Mills, I think everybody. I don't know if everybody. Of course, I don't know you would, but a lot of folks know John Mills. He's a really tall guy on all of our construction projects. I think you can just stand up in some of the main breaks we have, and his head's just poking out over the top like a prairie dog. But he's the guy you want if you have a water main break. I've never seen anybody who just thrives on water main breaks like that guy. He just comes alive, loves it. Everybody gets out of his way, lets him go. Next up, we have our two distinguished representatives from the fine city of Hallowell, just a few miles downriver. Both Keith and Kara came on the same time last year, and it's been a good year. You guys had fun? Yeah. All right, learned a lot, had a good time. That's excellent. I realized as I'm going through my PDF versions of my notes that I got very distracted and busy last week and left some things in there that I should have deleted, but that's not a problem. I'll take care of that now. You'll be happy to know our terms and conditions have been approved and they are on the website. So we were one of the first to do a new kind of term and condition where you can have it's a dynamic document. So if you scroll down and click on a link to say, well, what are the fees? It brings you the fee schedule that's in the back. And the theory that we talked about before, but just to reinforce that is that all the fees that we have are in the back of that document. So if we don't have any substantive language changes, all we have to do is change the fees next year. You submit one page. The folks at PUC don't have that much to do. They look at it. I mean, they don't have that much to do with our particular document in that case. They don't have to go 25 pages. Look at the one page, understand that those are inflation-based, justifiable fees, and away we go. So that's very cool. We're proud to have kind of helped lead the charge on that. And well, what else do I have? Moody's easement. I think we're talking about that coming up on a separate agenda item, perhaps. If not, we can. I think we do. Second.
Yeah, there's a motion.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't forget about that. We talked about that.
It's page 12.
And fire it out. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Any questions for Brian? Okay, now let's move on to maybe we had that already.
You want to talk more about? No, I don't have anything else to add.
Next item, consider advocating the sewer infrastructure to Moody's company, the auto body, promotion I need. So any update, Brian, on that?
You should have in your packages a document that was prepared by both Moody's attorney and our attorney to make sure it takes into consideration both the location and disposition after the execution of the prepared easement of where those sewer pipes are and who will be responsible for what going forward. In short, it basically says that Moody's takes ownership and responsibility of those pipes. It basically becomes a big private service just on the wastewater side. And that's it. The water pipes are still ours and no changes there. The city still owns and operates the road. No changes there, and same for stormwater. So the only thing we're pushing over to Moody's is that sewer infrastructure because it enables them to be a little more flexible on their property than we might be able to do.
Any discussion? Let's get a motion.
I have a question. Are there any other private services that would be impacted by this or have their service empty to something owned by Moody's and not us?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
That's the best answer I can give you. Remember the gentleman down the bottom of the hill? What? Yep. He goes to a manhole that will own operating control. So I think, and as far as I know, that's all there is.
And is there any hypothetical down the road, 50 years, it's not Moody's, it's somebody else, they become a non-cooperative bad actor, we could claw that back by eminent domain if we had to. Hypothetically.
Sure, of course.
Just want to make sure on those.
Now, my sense is that someday that building will wear itself out and then they'll have a whole new thing and they'll wonder why they did this in the first place. And unfortunately, we have windows.
I just
explain it.
Just
Sure,
want to
50
make
years.
sure if I'm able to live a long life, no one comes up to me in 50 years and says, why the hell?
So that looks like that's a dead end line then. I mean, it ends it down. It doesn't continue on someplace else.
Yeah, on Powhatan Street or Powhatan, I'm not really sure how to say it, actually, now that I'm saying it. But if you look at the drawing that's on the screen, you'll see Powhatan Street has a green line. It kind of ends nowhere. And that actually represents our best understanding of where that pipe exists. So they're basically taking all of that green line all the way to 3074. And then that yellow line depicts where the neighbor at the bottom of the hill goes in. So we'll own that 3784.
So if Louise clogged up the line,
That's their,
would it affect that downhill person?
no, because we'll take care of anything
It
at
wouldn't affect any other
3074.
customers. It's just,
Correct.
that'd be their own problem.
Correct. Yep. But consider it like a mobile home park, if you will, where it's quite a lot of infrastructure, but it's owned by a single entity, or Togus Hospital.
Well,
I just want to remind people, I noted last month that I will not take the vote on this matter because it will be coming before the planning board.
okay, motion,
I'll make the motion. I move to execute the release of deeds between God and real estate holding.
get a second on that? Okay. Speech, any discussion? Hearing of all in favor? All in favor. Okay, moving on, policy approval, acceptable use of AI.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I think in 6 months, there'll probably be 250 templates for the acceptable use of AI that you can find anywhere. But when I first wrote this up, we didn't really have much of anything. So I cabbaged this mostly from the state of New York. This was for their employees, and particularly they focused a lot on the ability to develop your own AI. So if you go home tonight and you're bored, you could download your own AI tools and start making your own artificial intelligence right there in the privacy of your own home. But we're not going to allow that kind of thing where we are just yet, not without more guardrails. So basically, this addresses some questions I've had from folks who are saying, is it okay to use Copilot? Can I use Gemini? The big prohibition, of course, is on our SCADA system. We don't want any data analytics or things that we might think would spin out of control on us looking at that data within our operational technology network. So copying that data into something else and analyzing it, well, that's perfectly fine. But doing it within that network is going to be prohibited. So this should give our employees some better guidance on what we will use AI for and when, and also give an opportunity for them to put up a hand to say, here's something I might want to use it for this. Does that seem like it's okay? And we can have a conversation about it before they use it. That's all. I suspect it'll change fairly soon.
Well,
A couple of things. You answered one question. You got to do the state in New York. When I first read it, I was wondering if you and AI got together. AI.
I wanted to, believe me.
Because I know AI, many different things. See, my son used it for different things when he was putting bills through there, his for health and stuff, his job, his work and everything else. He goes AI on certain things. It's very great. It's used properly.
Mhm.
Who is going to oversee this policy? Who gives the approval? Any day when there's any issues that come up?
It's gonna come up to me, unfortunately, at this point. I don't really have, we don't have a very big operation. So if somebody wants to use something and we all say, I don't know about that, I want to take a look at it myself. It's not something that's gonna come up much.
Okay, and again, because it's moving so fast, it's expanding so fast on the things. I think it concerns, like somebody just said, you will take it on, you've got a lot of stuff on those things. Is there anybody in the organization that could actually do this or anything?
I'd feel better if I did it right now.
I think I agree with Brian on that. To do, at the end of the day, Brian's responsible, you have one employee, he's responsible for this. I think it's a good call, water management. Doing it. I support this.
Yeah, that's really all I'm looking for, is just take a little breath before you dive into something, make sure there's no consequences, and then send it. I imagine it'll be a couple minute conversation with that.
Okay, motion. Right here, one. But
I move that we accept, policy and put it in effect.
wait a second. Yeah, any discussion of the motion? Very good, all those in favor? It passes. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Payne.
Okay, so for August, water division, revenues are at 4.7 million. That's about 3% over budget, and about 260,000 above last year. Expenses are running 3.2 million. That's right in line with budget. And that's about 394,000 above the same period last year. As far as cash flow, beginning of the month, was 5 million. Revenues for the month were 721,000. All those expenses were 393, and we had project expenses of 555,000, ending the month at 4.7 million in cash. And sewer division, revenues are at 4.8 million, which is also right in line with budget. That's about 640,000 more than last year. And all divisions haven't had the rate increase. That explains that difference from the prior year. Expenses at 3.3 million. That's about 5% under budget, and about 151,000 over last year. On the cash side, started the month at 1.5 million, collected 632,000 in revenues. O&M expenses were at 326,000. Project expenses were 158, and ended the month at 1.7 million in cash.
Questions for Mike?
Stormwater side, revenues at 2.8 million, which is about 3% over budget. Ken, did you have something?
No, almost that. Okay, make sure. Any questions in that first part?
Okay. We were 37,000 above the prior year. Expenses are 1.9 million. That's about 9% under budget. About 243,000 above last year. Cash flow started the month at 3.4 million, collected 363,000 in revenues. O&M expenses were 210,000, and in the month at 3.5 million in cash.
Questions? Okay. Moving on, liens, no liens. Okay, next up tonight, I think, is communications update. She's still on, right?
She is on.
He's reaching for unmute button right now.
I am.
Yeah,
How did you know
Yeah.
that? Oh my goodness, I've learned so much tonight. Yes, we are just exactly what Brian has here, fall newsletter with infrastructure. And I'm so praying that it rains and we don't have to get into the well situation, but we stand by, ready to help. I ask Brian usually every week, like somebody's putting a dipstick in. So the September insert is long since out. And as you all know, those of you who receive, should have your bill by now. We did oh my gosh, I can't talk, drought tips, i.e., turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth. All of those kinds of tips to do that. We just reiterated how important water is and talked about also the fire important piece that water also does for us. We are sort of holding our breath, getting ready to do the October insert. And again, hoping we can just talk about fall, get ready for put your outside water away and not have to talk about wells. But Brian, you and I need to sort of make that call here in the next couple of days, and I will proceed with at least get our October insert. The other thing that we're working on is October, which is planning season. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you all in person. Getting a few new photographs of a few folks. And I'll be working with Brian between now and when we get together. October, which I know Brian's probably already said this, and I may have missed it, but our meeting is on a Tuesday. Is that correct, Brian?
Tuesday, the 21st.
Tuesday, the 21st, and it will be, as we've done the last couple years, the first part will be the board meeting. Then we'll take a break, have a little nourishment, and then move into our planning session. Brian, is that going to be at the Civic Center?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
It's going to be at, right now I've got it as 4:30, or we'll work out the time. Generally, we do it a little earlier. This year, I prefer if we could do just a half hour later, start at 5, but Ken and I will talk and we'll get that sorted and I'll get you guys 5 o'clock. All right. I think
I think it's easier for everybody.
Yeah, and for, as a regular employee of a place, 5 o'clock is easier for
copy. All right. I'll slide that back to 5.
But we'll have the meeting first and then then we're gonna eat afterwards and talk about it. We don't want to make it long, drawn out thing. And like Brian said earlier, parents may not have heard this, is sometimes we have a second meeting if we need something to do with executive session. We just might do executive session at the civics, and not that we can't, but we typically don't do that. We'll see.
Yeah, not the end of the world if we have to. That's fine.
And I guess that was it, other than, go ahead.
I got a question. Meredith, on the September insert, you stick them in the bills, they go out. What about the people that don't get the paper bills mailed to them?
Great question. And Randy is on top of that when we actually create the stuffers, as I call them, the inserts. We create it 2 ways. One that gets actually printed and the other is digital. So those that, in theory, that are getting their bill digitally, they are also supposed to be receiving a digital version of the insert. And if you get them and can tell me and promise me that it really works.
I don't get those.
I don't get those.
Anything else tonight?
That's it. We have the emergency response plan. Brian has that up, that we're talking about doing a tabletop at some point, maybe through the winter here. I constantly worry that the communications parts of that, they get outdated so fast. So it's time to circle back to that. So that'll be
the planning session stuff too here, Brian, of the next month. Looking forward to see you there. Anybody other questions for Meredith? Meredith, thank you very much.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
HR update.
2 open positions. Utility worker 1, we do have someone interviewing on Wednesday. GIS specialist, we've interviewed several candidates. Looks like we'll be making an offer this week. Updating job descriptions 75% complete. We've done 1 360 review complete with a PDP. The other will be complete by the end of this month. I'll be updating, making changes to the personnel policy manual in 2 areas. The Maine paid family leave and medical leave program. We're still working on that, but we'll be making some changes to that. And then whistleblower protection for employees or contractors giving testimony to either the legislative committee, PUC, or the public advocate. There is a requirement to give notification on what that law is about. So, and then Brian talked about the mediation on Thursday, and we continue to work on communication and feedback groups.
Acronym, I'm guessing I know performance and plan, but PDP.
Personal development plan.
Thank you.
Anything else? We need to have a motion to go into executive session.
I move to enter executive session to discuss negotiations relating to the collective bargaining agreement between GAUD and Teachers Union Local 340 pursuant to MRS 4568.
Second. We're at any discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor? Move forward.